Don't stop.
Hi, thanks for joining me in the Everything and Anything in a Bit Gay podcast. I'm your host, Zach Randalls-Friedman. I would just say this is like the fourth time I try to do this intro. 4. And I've done like a full intro for each time. So no matter what I say this time, this is what's getting released. So, yep. I've done a lot of intros today, and I've done a lot of interviews today, and that's what today's been like. But I've enjoyed the day. Do you know why? Because I got to sleep 12 hours last night. I slept a full 12 hours. Like, went to bed kind of early, woke up kind of late, and I had so much energy when I woke up. And you know what I'm doing today? I am going to do my first of 3 micro needling session. 5:30 today, I'm going to get micro needling, and I have some interviews over the next few days, and I'm hoping my face doesn't look like it looked whenever I got a laser done one time. I don't know if you remember that time in Sex and the City where Samantha went and got a chemical peel and her face was like peeling off. Well, I got, was it a laser or was it some type of hot microneedling or both? I don't know. I think it was the hot microneedling. It was like hot needles, or I think it was 1,000 on one side of your face and 1,000 on the other side of your face. And let me tell you, my face looked like I had not just a sunburn, but like somebody put me in an oven and burned my face. Like, it was bad for like 3 days. And it was so itchy, like it felt like a really, really horrible sunburn. But the after results were amazing. And today is my first of 3. You go once a month. Today is my first of 3 microneedling. It's this new, it's not just a regular microneedling. I think it's like some new technology of microneedling. It's supposed to help with collagen and like make you look like you're 12 years old. Your face and skin is supposed to be all renewed and glowy afterwards. But I will let you know later this week, because I could come home tonight and need to cancel the rest of my interviews for this week, because if my face looks like I was put under a oven lamp, or my face was put on a grill, then yeah, I can't do interviews unless I just do them audio only. But that's my day. I'm excited. Like, I'm not excited because I think it's going to really hurt. She says they do numb you for microneedling, and who wants to have 20 needles at a time going in your face, all over your face? But it's the price of trying to look young and stay youthful. And that's what I'm doing. So I will let you know how that goes after I do it. Finish my first session. And I prepaid, so I am doing all 3 sessions because it was not cheap. So even if it hurts like hell today, I still got to go back for the other 2. Now for my guest today. Her name is Lennon Torres. She is incredible. I love talking with her. She is off of social media completely, except for LinkedIn. And our conversation was just amazing. She is something about her in the interview that we did. She's one of those interviews that when I say like, oh, I forgot I was on an interview, so I knew it was a good podcast. She was one of those people. I could talk to her for hours. Like, she's somebody that I'm like, God, I wish you were living in Boston. She's one of those people because I would love to be friends with her. Like, she is amazing. Enjoy the interview. She has a lot to say, and she is smart as hell. And I just was looking forward to putting out this interview so much because I enjoyed the conversation that much. So enjoy my interview with Lennon. Thanks for listening. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining me in the Everything and Anything in a Bit Gay podcast. Today, I have a brand new guest you have not met before. Her name is Lennon Torres, and I am so happy to have her, and we have a lot to talk about, so we're going to get right into it. So I want to start first with, we were talking about this right before we started. You were part of the whole Dance Mom show, and tell me what that was about and what your thoughts are on it.
Of course. Well, I have so many. It's very nice to be here, and thank you for having me. I think about Dance Moms as a cultural moment and a part of my story that, at different times in my life, I wanted to ignore. Now I'm sort of like, you got to embrace it. It's what's made me who I am today and been such a big part of my growth. But yeah, I started that show when I was 13 years old. I was a young dancer and grew to prominence in my local community pretty quickly, because I just was obsessed with it. I really, really wanted to do well, and I really liked the feedback loop of being excellent. And that was something that I felt at a very young age. And so when I started Dance Moms, and got that opportunity, I was so honored, excited, and wanted to be on TV. Unfortunately, that changed pretty quickly. Being on that show, I got a first eye view of what an incentive structure or a system that is built to exploit, how that impacts people. And so that was like my first sort of view of exploitation and sort of I think I'll leave it at exploitation for now. But yeah, it was interesting to see an industry built on the backs of sort of embarrassing others or making money at other people's expense.
Yeah.
And that was really a hard pill to swallow when you're a kid.
And when did you realize that was happening? Not until you got much older, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I would say it stopped being fun very young, and I couldn't really understand why. I remember after I started on season 3, and by the time I was on season 4, it just was starting to get old, and every time I would be invited, I was a guest star. So it would, it wasn't every week. And so when the producers would call, it usually would take a phone call or two to speak to me directly to convince me to go. I really wanted to be at school. And it became not fun. I was starting to have panic attacks on camera, and, those things were starting to go viral, and all the stuff that I truly, and I don't blame people that when they look back and are like, this is so ridiculous and laugh at it. Mm-hmm. I'm one of those people because it is pretty funny. It is also just really heavy because you realize that was a child, and that feels like a lot to swallow.
And what did your family think about all this? Once you kind of felt that yourself, did your family realize it too?
My family always followed my lead. I was very lucky, and especially in households with young LGBTQ folks, I really think that, parents can be a make or break, siblings can be a make or break. And, luckily for me, my parents were my lifeline. I was so grateful to have a mom and a dad that, saw that I was clearly different growing up. And instead of just letting things be, they proactively put me in an art school. They put me in dance. Mm-hmm. They did the things that they knew I would need as a young kid, even though they didn't really understand why. They just knew that it was needed, and that they needed to not just protect me, but be more intentional about my childhood. And so when the whole Dance Moms opportunity came, it was up to me. I made that choice. And my mom every single time was like, we don't have to do this, because it very quickly showed how heavy it got on me. It was pretty obvious by the second and third season I filmed.
Do you remember the point, or was there a point, that kind of what was being said on social media, so it replaced kind of your sense of self, because social media really sometimes defines who people are in a way, a lot of times. Or, if you look at, I look at all these, I read these articles and see these reports about how kids are bullied online, and then they're like, oh, kids are so mean, I think. And they tell other kids, why don't you go kill yourself and stuff? And kids do it. It breaks my heart whenever I see these type of things happening online. Even whenever I just posted a clip about an interview I did about a transgender woman that's running for Congress, and some of the trolls that came on there and the stuff they were saying, I'm just like, why do you this is what you do? You want to hurt people? I can't just. And then I look at their profile and they have 3 followers, and no public post of their own. And they've created this account to go on and just to be a nasty, mean person to people.
Well, you're opening up such a can of worms. Like, I have so much to say to that. I think first and foremost, social media is being monopolized by the worst options right now. And what I mean by that is, you walk into a Target or you walk into a grocery store and there are so many options. And, you expect that all those options are, safe and healthy and good. And if you don't like this one, you can try that one. And, there's a lot of consumer power in that moment. Right now with social media, we walk into a grocery store or Target and all of the shelves are empty. And the only options are the really stale generic brands that were in the back for like a year and a half. Mm-hmm. And that's what Instagram is. That's what Twitter is. That's what, YouTube is becoming. And that's why when you post videos about topics that elicit really extreme opinions, they often have better, in air quotation marks, engagement. And when you have more engagement, the users are spending more time reading the comments and or engaging with the post. And therefore, they can put that in their business plan to then sell to advertisers. And so they are profiting by putting your video of a trans woman running for Congress knowingly in front of people who react very strongly to that, because they know it keeps them on their device. And so when you think about America, I've been, really lucky to know and get to know a lot of parents who've lost their kids to social media harms. And that's been sort of my second professional career, has been working in this online safety and social media movement. And what I tell people is these parents have gone through the worst. They're doing everything they can for your kids. Mm-hmm. And they are exactly what happens when these social media companies continue to prioritize profit over people. And part of that journey and getting to know these parents is that I've gotten to know people across a wide variety of political spectrums and backgrounds. I should say more so backgrounds, because what I'm realizing is our beliefs and what we want are actually quite similar. And it's been really eye-opening for me, because people that I would have assumed would not welcome me have welcomed me with open arms and like swung their bat for me a couple times. You know what I mean? And when I look back at this last election, Trump spent over $20 million on that terrible ad that was, Kamala Harris is for they, them, and Trump is for you. Mm-hmm. And he ran it in swing states and spent so much money on it. When you poll those voters, they don't actually care much about transgender healthcare. And to be honest, they shouldn't. Like, it's my journey. It's, trans people's journey. Like, people just want to have their own individual rights and freedoms, but it's this like sensationalism that starts on social media and then perpetuates into our politics that really creates this massive divide. Because when you go online, oftentimes you're seeing the farthest left and the farthest right. And so it can be very discombobulating for a lot of people who find themselves anywhere not in that, on those two spectrum ends, if that makes sense.
And we'll be right back. Okay, and now back to the show. What's crazy to me is that the transgender population is less than 1%. And there were 674 bills that were introduced since Trump has been in office trying to take away rights. And I'm like, it just baffles me that there's so many people that need assistance in this country and help, and we're at a war with Iran. I mean, I could go on and on, but you want to focus on a transgender person using the bathroom? I mean, it's insane to me that this is where we are. And I just say out loud to myself sometimes, how did we get here? Like, it baffles me.
How did we get here? Let me tell you. This is my hypothesis. Things got really bad, people will have different moments, but for me, it actually happened right alongside my adolescence. So I turned 13 in 2012. I'm 27. And I got my first iPhone on that birthday. I got my Instagram on that birthday, Snapchat, YouTube. By then, a lot of adults were on social media. I was, not a popular. I mean, I was popular, but I had like 70 followers, and it was like everyone I knew at least have met in person once. Or, my feed was photos of people's days, and it was actually people I knew. And, all of the old sort of like nostalgic internet that, a lot of people are, saying they miss. That was the early experience for me. And I'm sure you can remember those experiences. And then I started Dance Moms that year as well, 6 months after that. And what I noticed was I went from like whatever, less than 100 to over 100,000 in what felt like overnight. It wasn't actually that, but it felt like that. And now there was, you think there are not a ton of safeguards now, there were none then.
Yeah.
And, because to be fair to them at the time, they hadn't thought it through maybe. No, by then they had, but, we can get into that another time. But the decisions that they realized was, it's actually not connection that makes us money. It's engagement and running ads and our attention being the product. And so then they restructure all of their incentive structures inside their companies to base it off of engagement. And then all of our algorithms changed. And then our Instagram experience changed. I remember it like clear as day. Like we used to, when it was just for fun. And then all of a sudden, every post I had, I wanted it to get on the popular page. I remember if you remember that era of Instagram. It was like,
oh yeah, I do. Yeah.
Post, and then it was like if you were getting enough engagement, you would get put on the popular page, and it was like the famous people was like the most popular post.
Yeah.
And literally, I remember people used to put in their biographies, like in their bios, like popular page count, like 4 or like 5, and it got to the point where I was deleting photos if they didn't have 1,000 likes in under 10 minutes. And I remember that because I remember thinking, if I'm not getting 100 likes a minute, then I'm embarrassed. I am less than, Maddie Ziegler, who's on the show every week. And it has, at that point, double the amount of followers that I had. Or, Chloe Lucasiak or Nia or whatever it may be from the show. And it became, and when you talk about like when it shifted for you, it was subtle. And because it was so decision-based and calculated and planned by tech executives, which is also what we're seeing now in these documents that have come out recently, it was planned. Like it wasn't a moment. It was like a slow thread of my inner being. And in a documentary that I'm in, one of the stories shared is of Sanaya. It's a young girl who took her own life after, social media addiction and harm. And what she says is there's a video of her talking to her, like a selfie video. She's like, I don't care what people say. The algorithms are inside of us. They're inside of us. And what she means by that is she said she'd been doing really good with her mental health. And then TikTok, and she was using TikTok less, and then TikTok started showing her really sad videos, and it like slowly brought her into like a deep depression, and it kept serving her that because it would keep her on the platform. And then, ultimately I believe that to have contributed to her death. And yeah, there's more stories. I have crazy stories. I'm really lucky to know these kids through their parents, and, even through my experiences, I've gone through a lot of garbage online, and I see so much of myself in these young kids, and it's heavy, but we're fighting. So
what you're saying makes so much sense. And I've never actually thought of it that way about how, God, you just really opened my eyes.
Can I break your brain for a second?
Yeah.
Okay. So I've been saying this for a minute now, and because there's also this whole thing about influencing and people who use social media for a living, like it is not on them. Like I think that there's this like idea of what an influencer is, or what, I used to be an influencer. It's like, they're self-centered, or they don't care about things, or they're just in it for the money, like whatever it may be. And I think that, when you think about social media reform, like the villain oftentimes ends up becoming the people that are giving you the eating disorder, or that are causing you to compare yourself. And And I like call bullshit on that, to be honest, because it's the companies, because they're profiting off of that very thing. And what I want to say to you is influencers are small businesses. And I think that they are the largest unpaid workforce, one of the largest unpaid workforces. And what I mean by that is not that they don't make money. Like, they clearly make money off of a brand deal, but they're working for the platform. They're creating content, and who they're creating for is not their audience of 100,000 followers. They're performing for an algorithm, because your post goes to an algorithm, and the algorithm decides if your post is worthy enough to be shown to your own followers. So they've wedged you in between your consumers and the people that follow you for you, and put an algorithm that is only engineered to show people what they spend their time looking at, not what they want to watch. And so what I started realizing as I was posting more things that I cared about and things that I loved, they were doing worse and worse, because it was things that would not keep me scrolling or keep my followers scrolling, and then I realized, you start to realize what does well, what doesn't. I was 14 by the time I realized if I didn't wear a shirt, my likes would double. That was just how it was, because I realized, and what I didn't know then was that the engagement algorithm was putting my 14-year-old shirtless body in front of known pedophiles. And that came out recently in documents that Meta's, Instagram algorithm was knowingly connecting predators to young kids by putting their content on their pages, because it kept the pedophiles scrolling, and they make money off of that. And then they put advertisements of, really terrible things on there. Now it's like AI nudify apps, and how do you, it's just really, it's gross, and it's negligence at a scale that we haven't seen. And so by break your brain, what I want to say is, imagine a world where you can speak to every single one of your followers every time you post.
Yeah.
How much more money would somebody make? How much more freedom would they have to create content that they like? How much more freedom would they have over scheduling? I mean, half the time when I was an influencer, I would set an alarm at 4:30 in the morning to get up and post, just so it could hit the morning algorithm.
Yeah.
No, my followers were not up at 4 in the morning. My followers are up when I'm up.
Yeah.
But if I posted when I was up, it's not going to get shown, because my followers are up in their day. They're not on TikTok. So
what you said that blew my mind, though, made me really think, is that they're serving my content. So my content is around my podcast, LGBTQ plus mostly stuff. And whenever I have these MAGA people coming on, and I'm like, how do they even find me? Because that's not my audience. It's the opposite of my audience. But they have found this post, and they're engaging on it, talking horribly about a transgender woman, or talking horribly about a guy that's trying to unite people because he seen George Floyd got killed. And he's like, I have to, I want the world to become more united together. And people are talking horribly about George Floyd being killed. Like, he was a fentanyl, he beat his wife and all that. I'm like, this guy's got a company, an organization. He's a rich investment banker. He started a company called Us United, and he's trying to make the world a better, kinder place. And this is what you got out of that 45-second clip, is that George Floyd was a horrible person. That's not what this is about at all. Listen to the fucking podcast and then make a comment.
And the thing is, and what they don't want you to know, and by they, I'm talking about Mark Zuckerberg, Adam Mosseri, Evan Spiegel. They don't want you to know that is by design. Literally, they chose to do that. There are internal things that say our goal isn't watching. I think the quote from YouTube is something along the lines of, the goal isn't viewership, it's addiction. That was an actual quote. So how are they going to do that? They're going to put your content in front of, and that's why I think so many influencers burn out. Me, I was felt less than a human by the time I was done. It doesn't have to be like that. There are ways to design social media platforms without what I call the digital nicotine. The endless scroll, the candy like reward systems built in, like the likes and the, but no one's saying we can't enjoy short form content. No one's saying we can't laugh at, thirst trap edits of my favorite character from my TV show or from Heated Rivalry. Like, all of that can exist on a better and people centered version of social media. And also part of my, work now, I get to know the people building these platforms, and it's just a matter of breaking through the noise. And what's exciting is we are at the beginning of the end for big tech. And what I mean by that is, we just got verdicts in the social media LA addiction trials, and it was like, I say, a clean sweep. They were found guilty on all the charges, both Meta and Google. They've got, it's really hard to get punitive damages, like punishment damages in California. And they did. And in New Mexico, they just lost in court and are now owing the state of New Mexico $375 million.
Wow.
And almost every single state in the United States has cases against Meta. So like multiply 375 million by 50, and thousands of school districts are finally seeing their day in court starting in June. Like, we're at the beginning of what we knew as the tobacco trials back then, of like the beginning of the end of cigarettes being, in vending machines at high schools. And, that's where we're at now. And so it's interesting to sort of watch it all fold and fall into place like dominoes. I mean, not to say it's not an incredible amount of work. I mean, the people I work with, including myself, we're exhausted, and then it feels like you're climbing up a hill a hill that never ends, because, it's David and Goliath. We're going against the most powerful companies in the world, but they really are losing in the court of public opinion and in the actual courts.
Do you think people even realize that they're being manipulated? Like, even young people probably less, but even adults, do you even think that people realize that? I mean, I guess with these court cases coming out and being so public, maybe people are starting to realize it. But I mean, in the 25 minutes we've been talking, you've gave me a huge education on some things that I probably knew in the back of my head. You're making them just come forward. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's so important that you're doing this.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I think it's actually funny. I think I'm going to say the complete opposite of what you assumed, which is that I think young people know much more about it, and can speak to what it feels like a lot more because they grew up on it and they are so close to it.
Yeah.
And I think adults, I mean, here, this is all just my feeling, but I think that young people tend to have, people like my friends tend to say things like, I hate social media, but I have to have it for my job. My best friend's a pop star. I'm obsessed with her. Shout out Upsall Music. She's great.
Who is it? What's her name?
Upsall Music. She's great. You got to listen. She has really good songs. But she is always like, I would delete it if I could. And she said that to me before. And I'm just like, and I agree. And I tell my friends, I deleted all of mine because I got lucky enough to be in a place now where my income is not reliant on that. And so I feel more free, and they know it's wrong. They know it doesn't make them feel good. There are national polls and surveys. There's even stats that some college students would pay money to get everyone else to delete social media so they could too. Yeah. Young people are really kind of sick of it, but also they're really afraid of the conversation of reform because it's also one of the only places we've ever felt seen as a generation. We grew up with our friends being shot at in schools, and we rallied, we organized, and jack shit happened, and when we're on social media, we think we know what feeling seen is, but really we're being exploited by it. So, but it's also they don't know what a better future could look like, so they don't know how to ask for it. Adults, on the other hand, don't understand it, so they don't know how to talk about it. They don't know how to parent their kids through it. They don't know how to. So it's really a lose-lose. And who wins when parents and adults don't understand but feel it, and kids who do understand but don't want it to change because it's the only place they've ever remotely felt seen. You create a deadlock and no progress, and then the rich get richer, aka Trump gets elected. All the tech billionaires, including a gay man, let's talk about that, Tim Cook, donating to his inauguration, attending his inauguration, giving him a golden trophy. You're telling me that these companies are like beacons of hope for the pride community? Please, Apple is an utter embarrassment. Like, the fact that he has the privilege and the platform that he does, and he chose to basically bend over and let Trump just like ride him like a freaking dog, is insane. It's insane.
And I wonder what's going to happen though with all these people. So I'll tell you that. I have a news podcast that I do as well called Listen Up Girl, and I do like 10 minutes or less every day of LGBTQ plus news. And yesterday I did a story where it was about Dave Chappelle. And Dave Chappelle, who had this whole transgender joke that people, like, he did it several years ago. It did not go over well. I watched the bit that he did. I thought it was borderline because he was friends with this transgender person. But what he is coming out now with and saying that he regrets doing it in a way because now all the political things that people are taking this and they're using it not as comedy, but they're using it intentional against transgender people. And it's so funny, like, basically what my story was is that all these people that were supporting Trump and doing this, and I don't know if Dave Chappelle was actually supporting Trump, but he was saying negative shit about transgender people. And all these people now that Trump is kind of falling out are now pivoting and like hoping to rebrand themselves in a way. And I think I can't wait to see like what a Tim Cook will do whenever Trump is completely out of the picture, which I think we're close. I mean, something is about to happen. Something is, I can feel it. There's an energy out there that he's close to it.
God willing.
Yes. And I can't wait to see how many people walk back. Nicki Minaj, who was her career is built on LGBTQ plus people. And she is an asshole for like trying to get her, she wanted pardons for her father and husband and didn't even get them. And now she has lost her complete fan base.
It's really sad. It's what happens when the wrong people get their hands on power.
Yeah.
Well, I always say, Mark, like, for example, sorry to interrupt you, but I think, like, I always say Mark Zuckerberg, yeah, he's smart, whatever, he created, a platform, but like, if he wouldn't have done it, somebody else would have done it a month later.
Yeah.
And, I'm kind of a firm believer in that. Like, and if this were any other situation, any other job, like, these people would be out of work. Like, so it blows my mind. It really does. I really, some days I have something really eloquent to say about it, and other days I'm just like, I don't know.
And we'll be right back. Okay, and now back to the show. Whenever you kind of figured out this was like an issue for you and just kind of seeing for the world, what was your healing process like? Like, what did you do to kind of get yourself into a better place?
Still working on it. I tell my friends, like, as a joke, like, because I deleted social media, I'm the only one of my, friends that I haven't met through this work that are not on social media. And I always joke, I'm like, oh, well, I'm not on social media, so I'm saved. Like, I'm found. Like, I'm good. But it's like so not like that. Like, my healing journey, I had gone through some pretty traumatic stuff as a kid, panic attacks on camera, all of the, terrible things on social media, grooming, exposure to, adult men who had nefarious and inappropriate intentions, attempted, sextortion, which is where, like, they'll groom you into thinking you're in a safe space. You'll do something compromising and then they'll blackmail you. It's how a lot of kids die.
Let's talk about that a little bit more, because I think that's important to...
Yeah, I would love to talk about that.
Yeah.
It's called sexual extortion or sextortion, and it's really, really common among especially young boys. And what happens is these highly, highly intelligent criminals will find young boys online and easily see who they're following, create an account of maybe somebody that's at a high school, in the neighboring town or whatever, reach out to them. And, what ends up happening is they'll talk for, I know stories where it all went down in an hour and 50 minutes and the kid was dead. Because what happens is they talk and we're, when you're, I remember when I was a teen, and Snapchat was invented, the whole reason Snapchat was invented was to send nudes. That was the birthing idea of it. I actually just read Evan Spiegel's deposition in the case yesterday for something, and that came up again. And, the kid will send something and they'll be like, now I've got you, and they'll just pressure, push and push. If you don't send me $200, then this. If you don't do this, I'm going to send it to all your friends, your family, your mom, to your college, to your school teacher. Your life's going to be over. In the case of a kid named Jordan DeMay, who I've gotten the pleasure of getting to know his dad and his mom. And, he was even said to the abuser, I think he said, I'm killing myself because of you right now. And the response of the person was, do it fast. And he did.
But why would he want him to kill himself? What's the purpose of that?
Because to them, if they lose and the kid dies and they don't get money, that to them is not as bad as, or it doesn't outweigh the good of if it doesn't, they end up getting some amount of money. And so they'll target sometimes really affluent families and go for really high amounts. And if they just swing and miss, then, and these are just really awful people. And there's even some where, there was a story of a young boy who was sextorted off of deep fake imagery. So it wasn't even of him. It was, they used AI to make it, and he still killed himself because of the fear that he had. And, the conversation is oh my God, how did it get to that point? But you have to think back to some of these kids are 14, 15 years old. And they're conditioned to think that these platforms are their whole life. And then this is happening. And, and there are ways that the companies could stop. Meta, I think after Jordan DeMay died, Meta removed I think it was 750, maybe it was 75. I think it was 75,000 accounts of people who they knew were sextorting kids. And so if they could have done that just because they knew that it was happening, then Jordan DeMay would still be alive. But they waited until after because they needed to save their ass.
I had no idea there was a whole network out there of that happening. I know that, the pedophile thing, I knew that exists because you read things about that, but people to try to get money from a 14 or 15-year-old boy isn't crazy. But to have them say, yeah, kill yourself and do it fast. That's a human life. I can't comprehend it.
You should take a look. There's a number of incredible documentaries that are coming out slowly in the space that tell the stories of some of these families. And, one of them that's out, it was nominated for an Emmy and it just got nominated for a Peabody. And it's, a lot of the parents I work super, super closely with. It's more the parent perspective. A lot of the young person perspective documentaries that I'm featured in are coming out the end of this year and next year. But it's called Can't Look Away. And if you go to joltfilm.com, or I don't know if it's a .com, but it's just called Jolt Film, you can rent it and watch it. And it's an hour and 15 minutes. It's a really hard watch. So just all of the content warnings, take care of yourself, watch with care, but it is very powerful. And it explains a sextortion story. There's a story about, of a young boy named Alexander, who I've gotten to know his mom, Amy, who passed away at 14 because he thought he bought a Percocet off of someone on Snapchat, but it was fentanyl. And, the first sort of instinct is okay, Snapchat didn't have much to do with that, until you look at the way that the platform is designed, where the people that they're recommending these kids add to their friends list to increase their Snap score so that they look more popular. are often nefarious actors. And the minute they add them, it's there was a kid who overdosed, or I always have a hard time with overdose. It's like it was poison, whatever. But he overdosed and he's still alive. And he said that he was seeing like multiple drug menus every day on Snapchat that were like fed to him. And then like in all the technology, I mean, there's ways to do, I won't get into it, but there are ways like without, people reading every message to detect when something like that is going on. And, there's Snap Map where predators can look and see where all the kids are, meet up with them. They like hand deliver the drugs. Like, and Snapchat knew all this and they didn't do anything about it. And then, kids like Alex died. And, or they'll know that like, they'll be like, hey, like, this account is linked to a drug dealer. They won't take it down. And then they'll kill another kid, which has also happened. And that's like another harm. And then there's, kids who struggled with mental health, like Mason Edens, who, is from Arkansas and was like popular kid in town and, had a smile that lit up the world, but then went through a really crappy breakup and he was depressed. I mean, like a teenager, when you go through a breakup, it sucks. Yeah. So he went to TikTok and he looked up positive affirmations. I just broke up with my girlfriend. And before he knew it, he was getting served content that was suicidal ideation and encouraging suicide. And it took from November 1st to November 14th for his feed to go from positive to negative to the point where he took his own life in his home.
Oh like, God.
You know what I mean? And it's hard because when I talk about these and I can see you reacting and I appreciate you, just receiving this and I what I want to say to people who this like really hits is like, these aren't even really edge cases at this point. Like if you ask a young person like what they're seeing online, it's usually not good. And it really is that bad. And I try to, tell people like, you have to wake up, because you always hear like, well, it's the parents, why aren't they parenting more? Why aren't they looking at their kids' stuff? And they are. It's like, but when you see an internal document where, for example, Meta knew that kids were creating what we called finstas to evade parental oversight. Instead of, helping figure out a way to curb that, they wanted to launch a marketing campaign around kids creating finstas so that there were more of them. And so it's just like, again, it's like, it is really bad, but the good news is it's not because we are doomed. It's because bad people are doing bad things.
Yeah.
We can rally against that and put our energy into the right things and call their bullshit, then they'll have to move away and they'll have to make way for the new innovators who I know for a fact can build a better world than we're living in.
What are your thoughts on like some of these influencers, that the Island Boys, for example, that are, they started off strong, making money off a silly song and stuff, and just their whole look and stuff, and then like they just like TikTok and Instagram completely like tore them apart, and I think they were making millions of dollars off of what they were doing, and now like I think one of them is not, he could be in jail or something. Like they've had a lot of issues that has happened. So I don't want to say he's in jail because he may not be, but I know that he's had some issues with the law. And now I feel like their whole life is like turned upside down now. And I feel, they were out there and the tattoos and stuff were over the top and stuff. But I feel like the whole online community turned against them and made them, kind of go down a different direction than from where they were going. Like, what are your thoughts on influencers like that? And maybe the Island Boys isn't the best example, but there's a lot of influencers out there that start off strong. It's new money to them. They're making money. They never thought they were going to be anything in some cases. And then they make millions and millions of dollars and stuff. They're driving these nice cars. They have a nice house. And then it seems like a year and a half later, they're declining.
Oh, yeah. It's like science. It's like clockwork. And I don't know anything about the Island Boys. I was like kind of grinning because I was like, I feel like how my sister always makes fun of me because I'm chronically offline at this point.
Yeah.
So like, I was sitting next to oh my gosh, who was I sitting next to at sushi the other day? She was just on Dancing with the Stars. She's really famous. And I had no idea.
Yeah.
And my sister was like, you sat next to, what is her name? Oh my God. Anyways, it doesn't matter. But what I have to say is that's a product of the machine. That's by design that they burn out like that, because what happens is you are, as an influencer, not performing for your audience, you're performing for an algorithm. I visualize the algorithm oftentimes like a pimp. Like it's like they're deciding like, all right, is this good enough? All right, I'll show it to all your followers. Oh, you haven't gone viral in a while and you're thinking about walking away. So I'm going to throw you some virality and it's going to taste real sweet, but I'm not going to give it to you for more than a week, because then I'm going to pull it all away so that you then create more. And so I can put ads next to your content. That's like my job as the algorithm or the big tech company. And then on the other side of that, that I experienced personally as an influencer who was making their full income off of influencing. I was going to grad school. Like I really leaned in towards the end and was, working with major brands that I don't have anything against at all. I just, the machine of it, and what happens is you find yourself doing things that are not true to yourself. It's not, exactly what you had set out to do, but it's what's doing well. And then you're just like, before you know it, morphed into this thing you don't recognize. And oftentimes that creates a very destabilizing, mentally unhealthy person. And that was, at least in my situation, what happened. And when you are mentally unhealthy, are you making the best decisions? Are you, doing anything? But then it's like that algorithm is waiting for you to fall. It's waiting for you because it wants to give you the audience. It wants you to feel like if the more you do, the better. And yeah.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. Okay, now back to the show. Like, what's your advice to anybody, child or adult, that has gotten sucked into this and they don't know who their authentic self is anymore, to kind of reclaim that? I think that's really what people need to do, because I feel like what we just been talking about, a lot of people's whole persona, their whole personality is based on who they are, showing they are on social media. And me and my friend, a good friend of mine, we always talk about certain people like post on their Instagram and Facebook, and they show this whole like perfect life. But we know who they are really, and we know like it's all just it's a whole fabricated story that they've made up. Like their life is not like that at all. And in fact, they're quite miserable outside of posting stuff. So I think that's one thing. But then the other thing is like, these people that are going on and their whole life as a child or as a teenager or college is about what they're posting on social media, and they're not even being authentic to who they really are. How do people reclaim that and become authentic again?
I think it's different for everyone. I'll just give that disclaimer. But my recommendation is, if you feel like you're losing yourself, do the work to find yourself again. And what I mean by that is often doing things that are really hard. And for me, I felt that way. And what I did, and maybe this can, help any listeners like have a little bit of a path, was the first thing I did was I got rid of my iPhone. And that feels like an interesting choice because I went to a different kind of smartphone. Mm-hmm. And the whole point was to just retrain, like force myself to reestablish habits with technology. And, then it turned into full, like, I have like a full on like flip phone now.
Oh, wow. Like, you're old school.
This is my dumb phone. I mean, I have a work phone that is not this. So, but like, I made choices to just require a like way to change my relationship to it. For social media, I deleted everything. But that is very privileged because, what is unfortunate is, these influencers, that's their income. They can't afford to stop, and that is, I feel for them, and that can be really challenging. And so to them, I say, put up boundaries, do what you got to do. But, no, I'm not looking at you any differently for playing the game at this moment, because the game is your livelihood. And that's sort of, before we started, you asked like, what's something you'd want to chat about? It's my privilege. And, I'm in a place where I'm able to do that and be offline, not be on social media and still have a career. And that is a privilege. And so I'm working hard to change the digital communities we, are a part of and push, these bad executives and poor excuses for social media to the side to usher in a new era so that by the time, the new version is ready, people are ready to jump. And so that's kind of what's happening right now, I think. And my advice is to stay off as much as possible and read about the decisions they're making.
What's one thing that you wish somebody would have told you when you were 13?
Don't get on social media.
Yeah. And do you think in 5 years from now or so, with all these court cases happening and, you think things are going to change?
I think the next 5 to 10 years are going to be full of a lot of change, and it does have the potential to go negative and get really, really bad, but it also has the potential to get really, really good. And if the courts and the verdicts and, the general sort of bubbling up of people realizing, regardless of party, that tech oligarchs are running our country and we have to get them out, I think it's going to be for the good. And so I think, sit back and engage when you can, but get ready because it's time to change.
2 more questions for you. If social media disappeared tomorrow, what would you be doing?
Oh my goodness, I love this question. If social media didn't exist, what would I be doing? I think I'd be like running like a queer kids outdoor camp or something, like in the woods.
Okay.
Where I just hang out and I'm outside and have dogs and a family and provide community for kids. And one thing actually that makes me think about, and I want to say before we end, is there is a lot of people on the side of big tech that parrot this false dichotomy that in order to have queer kids find resources and connection online who don't get it in their normal lives, that's a reason to not change social media. And they make a lot of money off of that. And they, take advantage of a population who is catalyzed to act against legislation because we're so used to being hurt by it, that they actually pay a ton of lobbyists lots of money to persuade left-leaning congressmen, legislators in the states, organizations to go against sometimes the work that, people I work with are doing. And it's really a hard thing to realize because it's queer people that are 3 times more likely to be harmed online and find themselves in unwanted situations online. And so if the status quo continues, queer kids are being hurt at an exponentially higher rate, and fixing the system is only going to cost big tech more money, but it won't take away the ability for people to connect and have true online digital community. And so I like to talk about that because there's very few queer people out there that understand that nuance. And unfortunately, there are really, really, sensationalist people out there that make content off of it. And, I've been accused of being funded by the Heritage Foundation. I'm like, you've literally lost the plot, dog. You are lost in the sauce. But
my last question for you, actually I have 2. My last 2 questions. One more is a wish that I hope you can do this. Do you ever, I hope that you do this, at least at the end of this podcast or tonight or tomorrow or sometime over the weekend, where you can take a moment and hopefully if you don't do this already, you will do it and think about all of the amazing things that you're doing and giving and lives that you're saving and people's lives that you're changing and helping these parents that lost their children and stuff, because that is so amazing. And if you don't know how amazing that is, I hope that you do take a moment and kind of reflect on that a little bit, because there's not a lot of people thinking like you. There's not a lot of people educating people like you. You've given me so much in the hour that we've been speaking that I will take away and think about. And I hope that people that are listening to this episode walk away and do the same. And so you're an amazing person. I can't believe that you're 27. You have an old soul. You care about the world, and that's so incredible. And we need more people like you. So I hope that that's not a question, it's just a comment more, I guess.
Thank you. And it really is the honor of my life to do this work. And yeah, I appreciate that, especially right now, because to be honest, I just put together this insane, we're working on a really crazy event next week in Washington, D.C. I'll just say ominously, because I don't really know when this is going to come out, but it's been a lot and I'm exhausted. And so I actually really appreciate that, because I'm having this moment, and I'm also still dancing professionally. And so I literally work 8 hours starting at 5 a.m, and then I'm rehearsing all night for this show that I'm doing, and it's exhausting, but I also feel so lucky. And getting to know the kids that I work for, the angels, and it's all really something I don't take for granted. And part of what I get to do is story tell with these people. And I know what it feels like to be on a show where you're exploited for your story, and I don't want that for any of these parents. And so the way we tell their stories is on their terms, and it really heals my inner child, because if a parent looks at me and is like, I changed my mind, I don't want to speak, I'm like, all right, we're done, we're not doing it, everyone leave, I don't care who it bothers, I don't care if I spend $20,000 on a crew. If the parent says no, it's over, it's done, I don't care. That's that. And it's happened before. And the joy I feel when the parent looks at me and is like, thank you. I'm like, you're welcome. Because when I was a kid, no one did that. Yeah. And I would have had to go up there, or the equivalent of. So
tell people how they can find out more information about what you're doing, the work you're doing. And then also, if you would like to tell people how they can find out where you're dancing and stuff, I'd love to help you promote that as well.
Okay, great. So you can find me on LinkedIn. That's the only social media I really have. I'm on a platform called We Are 8. You can look, that's a new up and coming social media company that I think is going to take the world by storm. It's more popular in Europe right now. But I think the best way to stay in touch is to follow the organization I work for, which is called Heat Initiative. And then also follow me on Substack, which is where I do a lot of my writing. I haven't in a minute, but I do have a Substack. It's Lennon Torres. I write The Diary of a Palatable Trans Woman there, where I talk a lot about what it feels like to sometimes sand down your edges to fit in a room that you need to be in but aren't fully accepted in, and sort of the challenges of working in an issue that's bipartisan and in a world and in a body that is certainly not. So yeah, check that out as well. So Heat Initiative and Substack. Yeah.
I'll put all these links in the description of this podcast or video, however you're consuming this podcast. And so check it out. And so I think what you're doing is so amazing. I feel really honored that I got to interview you and talk with you, because we need more amazing people like you that are looking out for the world and aren't just looking to make a quick dollar, and that really care about people. We need more kindness in this world, and you're bringing that. So thank you so much for being on.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Zach, and anytime.
If you like this episode and you think it resonates with somebody please share it with a couple of friends and leave a comment, and come back tomorrow for my new guest. So thanks so much for being on, Lennon.
Of course.